Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayomi Maseches Bava Kamma DAF Nun. Perhaps let's just go back to the Mishnah again, back on DAF Mem Tes Amud Beis, around 10-12 lines off the bottom. We'll start from Mishnah quickly again, which would lead us into the new sugya. Okay, Hachayfer Bur B'Shus HaYachid. So we're speaking about the mazik of bur. A person digs a pit, which creates an obstacle, a hazard, which causes damage. Question: where is this pit located? It says the Mishnah. It doesn't matter. Hachayfer bur b'shus hayachid. So if he dug it in his private property, ufsachay l'shus rabim, but he angled the opening into the street, sort of like tunneled it into the street, and the opening is actually in the street, or the other way. He dug the pit in the street, but he had the opening in his private property, which was near the street, which he sort of opened to public access. Or he dug it in his backyard, but he had the opening in a different Rishus HaYachid. But once again, Rashi explains he was mafkir his Rishus, meaning he made his property accessible to the public, otherwise they have no business stepping into his backyard, right? So either way, if it causes damage, chayiv, he's responsible. Tana Rabbanan, says the Brisa, chayfer bar rishus hayachid v'sachal rishus harabim. So he dug it in private property, we opened to the street. Chayiv, he's responsible. V'zehu boir ha'amar b'Torah. And this is the classic case of a pit in the Torah, for which he is liable. David Rabbi Shmuel, that's a Rishmo's opinion. So bar rishus harabim, he's chayiv. Rabbi Kiva Eimer, no. Was speaking that the bur was located in private property, hifkir rishusah, but then he made it hefker and allowed public to access the area. But retained ownership of the bur, so it's his bur, which is now causing a hazard. Zehu bur ha'amar b'Torah. That's the classic example of a bur in the Torah for which he's liable. Amar Rabbah. So we have two ways to explain this machlekes, Rabbah and Rabbi Yosef. Says Rabbah, all agree. If he dug a pit in the middle of the street, of course he's responsible. My time out, why? Amakra, the pasuk says, we find the repetition in the pasuk. Yiftach, he uncovered an existing pit, or he dug a pit anew. Why the repetition? Imal psicha chayv, if he's responsible for simply exposing a pre-existing pit, al kriyla koshkin, doesn't it lend to reason that if he digs the pit to begin with, he's responsible? So why even mention it? Ella, the pasuk is sending you a message, giving you an understanding in terms of his liability. Shall iske psicha, val iske kriya boilei. Why is he liable? Not necessarily because he owns the hazard. It's because of his involvement. He opened, he dug. His masa, not his ownership, his masa, his doings, his activity is what causes that liability. So even if it's in the street, something which he doesn't own, he's responsible. So all agree on that. That's Rabbah's opinion. Machlekes only pertains if it's a pit in his private property, which of course, as we explained, he opened to the public. That's the machlekes. A pit located in Rishus HaYachid. Rabbi Kiva Savar, he holds bar b'shus nami chayiv. He's liable for that too. The pasuk calls it bal habar. He's the owner of the bur. Apparently, we're speaking about bur. Disli Bava Kamma Rahman. We're speaking about a bur that's owned by somebody. So he's chayiv. Rabbi Shmuel Savar, no. When we speak about Bala Bar, we're not speaking about ownership. We're speaking about the person who created that obstacle with his doing. But of course, it's in the street. So once again, according to Rabbah, B'Shus Rabim all agree you're chayiv. B'Shus HaYachid is machlekes. Rabbi Shmuel says no. Rabbi Kiva says there he's chayiv as well. Asks the Gemara, Elamai zehu boir ha'amar b'Torah dekam Rabbi Kiva. When Rabbi Kiva responded to Rabbi Shmuel, he says, well, no, this is the bur of the Torah, this in private property. Well, it's not just this, according to Rabbah. It's this in addition to the regular bur b'shus harabim. So why does he say zehu? The answer is like this. Zehu bur shepasach be'akasav tchila l'tashlumin. He was making a point. He was simply trying to make an argument. He says, look, if you look at the psukim, what's the first reference that the Torah refers to in terms of a bur for which he has to pay? Bal habar yishalim. So clearly the Torah is referencing a bur which is owned by somebody, a private bur, which triggers payment. So how can you sort of negate this bur? If anything, this is certainly a bur which generates liability. That's Rabbi Akiva's opinion. But of course, this is in addition to the bar b'rishus rabim, for which he's liable as well. Bottom line, according to Rabba, b'rishus rabim all agree you're chayiv, b'rishus yachid is machlekes. Rabbi Kiva says yes, Rabbi Shmuel says no. Rabbi Yosef Amar, Rabbi Yosef disagrees. He goes the other way. A bar in private property which you allowed people to access, you certainly chayiv according to all shittos. My time, and why is that? Balabar amarachmano. He focuses on the words balabar. It's a man-owned bar. It's a private bar. You're chayiv. All agree. Keep pligi, the machlekes only pertains to bebar b'rishus rabim, a bar in the street. So it's the opposite of Rabbah. Rabbi Shmuel holds bar b'rishus rabim nami chayiv. Why? Dechsiv, that's the pasuk we had before, because it's his causation, it's his doing, even though it's not owned by him. Dechsiv ki yichri iftach v'chi yichri, right? That repetition, he uncovered, he dug. Why elaborate? Why repeat? Ima psicha chayiv. If we already know the first part, by just simply uncovering your chayiv, al kriya l'koshkan, of course, by digging. So what's the point of the pasuk? Ella, pasuk is teaching us shal iske psicha val iske kriya borloi. It's because of his involvement, not his ownership. So even a bar in the street, you're chayiv. Rabbi Kiva responds. He says, no, a bar in the street, you're not chayiv. Hanu mitzrach stricha, because there's a need. There's a purpose for the Torah repeating these two things. Dikas rachmana ki yiftach. The Torah will only speak about uncovering, taking the lid off a bar. However, I would say, when a person simply uncovers a pre-existing bar, it's sufficient for him to go and cover it again. That absolves him, because after all, that's all he did. He uncovered, so now he recovers it. But if a person actually digs a pit to begin with, perhaps in this case, lidding it, covering it is not enough, because it might rot and it might break apart. Bottom line is you have to undo what you did at the time until you actually refill that bar. So that's what I would think, if not the fact that the Torah actually puts them together and says, look, whether you uncovered, whether you dug, as long as you deal with it responsibly, you're okay. So that's why the Torah has to stress both things. Because of Rachmana ki yichra. Now, had the Torah only said the second part, that a person who dug a bar has to cover it, I would say, perhaps only if he actually dug the bar. Well, there he has to really care for it, cover it, because he created the bar. But a case where he just uncovers a pre-existing pit, he didn't actually make the pit, so perhaps he's not really responsible. Perhaps he doesn't have to go cover it. The person who made the bar has to look after it. That's the chiddush of the pasuk. Whether he uncovered a pre-existing bar or he dug a bar to begin with, we treat them as the same. So bottom line, according to Rav Yosef, a bar shus hayachad all agree chayiv, a bar yishalom, a bar shus rabim is a machlekes. Rabbi Shmuel says chayiv, Rabbi Kiva says patur. Asks the Gemara, velamai zehu bar amar b'Torah to come Rabbi Shmuel. Now Rabbi Shmuel, when he presents his case, he says, look, his opinion, he says like this: a bar shus rabim, that's the bar of the Torah. What do you mean that's the bar? We just said that according to Rabbi Shmuel, whether it's in the street or on private property, you're chayiv. So why is he singling out the bar b'shus rabim? Answers the Gemara, he was just making a point. You can't negate this bar. Zeh bar shepasach be'akosav tchilu l'nizaken. If you look at the psukim, which describe a bar causing damage, which is the first one that the Torah speaks about that caused damage? The one that is in the street, ki yiftach, ki yichra, and somebody falls in. So you can't just negate that bar. Of course, that bar is certainly what the Torah had in mind. A bar b'shus rabim is chayiv. So bottom line, a bar b'shus rabim, a bar b'shus hayachad, which one is he chayiv? According to Rabba, all agree a bar b'shus rabim is chayiv. Bar b'shus hayachad, well, according to Rabbi Shmuel, no. According to Rabbi Kiva, yes. Rabbi Yosef goes the other way. Bar b'shus hayachad, all agree a chayiv. Bar b'shus rabim, Rabbi Shmuel says yes. Rabbi Kiva says no. Meis, here comes a kash. A chayiv, a bar b'shus rabim. Upsachay, l'shus hayachad. He digs it in the street, opens it into private property. Potter, he's not responsible. I think Gemara figures at this point, even if he made the territory hefker, it's now accessible to the public. Well, it's a bar b'shus hayachad, he's potter. Bava b'she'en Rashi lasses kain. Of course, a person not allowed to do that. Not allowed to dig under the street. Not meant to take a void. Meant to make a empty cavity under the street, lest it collapse and cause damage. But if he does it and somebody falls into the pesach, into the opening which happened to be angled into private property, you potter. The Brisa continues. He's chayiv. So the other way, if he digs a pit, all kinds of, different shaped pits, in his private property, and he angled the opening into the street, like a tunnel, you open it into the street. Now it's a bar b'shas rabim, because it's all about where the opening is. It's all about where the obstacle is. As Tosfos points out in DAF Mem Tesam Beis. The klal is wherever the Pesach is, that's sort of the location of the bar, even though the actual cavity is in a different place. Okay, so he's chayiv because it's in the street. The Brisa continues. So far we have a bar b'shas rabim, check, chayiv, bar b'shas yachad X, he's potter. The Brisa continues with words which seem to contradict that. If he digs a pit in his private property near the street, going to elu hachefim leushin, like people who dig foundations for buildings, which is common construction practice. He does it near the street. He's potter. Well, the Gemara figures because it's a special dispensation for digging foundations. For Rabbi Yisrael, in this case as well, you have to make a construction fence, 10 tefach high to protect the passerby. Or you make like a ledge. Dig your foundation, but do it at a distance. Create a gap, a space, at least 4 tefach on the street to protect the pedestrians. Now, Ta'ama delusion. So it's clear from the Brisa that the reason why he's potter when he digs the pit inside his, property, that's because it was a construction pit. But it wasn't meant for. If it wasn't meant for a foundation, just a plain hazard, chayiv, he's responsible, even though it's a bar b'shas yachad. Hamani. So who's speaking in this brisa? Here we say bar b'shas yachad is chayiv, then we say pot. What's going on? So b'shleim el Rabba, according to Rabba, we can say like this. You're right. This brisa reflects 2 different opinions. Reisho, the first part of the Brisa, which told us that a bar b'shas yachad is potter, that's Rabbi Shmuel speaking. V'sefer, the second part, which says a bar b'shas yachad is chayiv, anything other than foundation, digging, you're chayiv. That's Rabbi Akiva speaking, because a bar b'shas yachad is chayiv according to him. El Rabbi Yosef, according to Rabbi Yosef, who holds that a bar b'shas yachad is potter. So b'shlem Sefer divrei hakoil. So the second part of the Brisa, according to Rabbi Yosef, who holds that bar b'shas yachad all agrees chayiv. So, sure, the Sefer which says that anything other than, construction digging is chayiv, divrei hakol, that reflects all opinions. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva both agree a bar b'shas yachad is chayiv. Ela Reisha, but the first part of the Brisa, which indicates otherwise, a bar b'shas yachad is pater mani. Who's speaking? Lo Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva can't be going like either shita. Amlach Rabbi Yosef says Rabbi Yosef like this: Kula divrei hakoili. Well, the entire Brisa is following all these shitas, meaning a bar b'shas yachad, of course, is chayiv. So why in the first part of the Brisa does it seem like he's potter in a bar b'shas yachad? Reisha, the first part of the Brisa is speaking he didn't make his property accessible to the public. It's mine. It's my private bar, my private backyard. You have no business accessing my bar or my property, and therefore I'm potter. So in this case, all agree you're potter. When we say bar b'shas yachad is chayiv, that's when he made his property hefker and opened the doors to all to come in. Amar Ravash. Okay, let's take it a step further. Now that we've established that according to Rav Yosef, the Brisa can work like all shitas. Well, the Rabba Nami. So now we can say that even according to Rabba, we don't necessarily have to say that this Brisa is sort of split between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. We'll say it like this. Midireisha Rabbi Shmuel. Since the first part of the Brisa, which says bar b'shas yachad is potter, is Rabbi Shmuel's shita, we'll say for now Rabbi Shmuel. The next part of the Brisa is also Rabbi Shmuel speaking. So why is he chayiv? V'tama delusion. He's only potter because it was a foundation, dig. Ha'lav delusion, but otherwise would be an ordinary pit, irresponsibly dug near the street. He would be chayiv. The question is why, right? I'll tell you why. There's a case where all agree you're chayiv. He going to arvach arvuchi l'shas rabim. Sure, he dug it next to the street, but he sort of expanded his bar a little bit into the street, and a passerby can just slip in there. So even though the chunk of the bar primarily is in his private property, but it's sort of opened a bit into the street, all agree you're chayiv in this case. So bottom line, we found the case where all agree you're chayiv, such as this case where it's partially in the street. We found the case where all agree you're potter, which is the leushin dig, which for some reason was allowed. Meis, here comes another kasha. You dug a pit in your private property, and you opened it into the street, you're chayiv. But if one digs it in his private property, right near the street, he's potter. So now, Bishlam Rabba, so according to Rabbi Shita, Kula Rabbi Shmuel. This entire brisa reflects Rabbi Shmuel's Shita, who says that a bar b'shas Rabba is chayiv, but b'shas yachid is potter. Good. El Rabbi Yosef, according to Rabbi Yosef, how does this work? Bishlam Meresha, so certainly the first part of the brisa that says bar b'shas Rabba is chayiv, is Rabbi Shmuel, who says likewise. El Seifa, but the second part which says a bar b'shas yachid is potter, that doesn't work like anybody. Lo Mani, Lo Rabbi Shmuel, Lo Rabbi Kiva, because according to Rabbi Yosef's opinion, all agree a bar b'shas yachid is chayiv. So how does this work? Amalach, I'll tell you, we have that Leushin dig, which is an exception. Amalach, b'chayfa Leushin. It's a foundation dig, which for some reason was allowed to be done. All agree you're potter in that case. Okay, let's summarize this piece of Gemara. When you dig a bar, are you chayiv? Well, we have Rabba, we have Rabbi Yosef. So according to Rabba, a bar b'shas Rabba, all agree you're chayiv. A bar b'shas yachid, well, according to Rabbi Shmuel, you potter, according to Rabbi Kiva, you're chayiv. We have Rabbi Yosef. A bar b'shas yachid, all agree you're chayiv. A bar b'shas Rabba, Rabbi Shmuel says yes, Rabbi Kiva says no. We have some exceptions to the rule. Leushin, all agree it's potter. A bar near the street, which was sort of, partially open into the street, all agree that's considered bar b'shas Rabba. And certainly if he dug a bar in his backyard and he fenced it in, there was nobody had business going there, but he wasn't mafkir his rishus, all agree you're a potter. Tana Rabban, here comes a new case. Chafar, let's say a person digs, a cistern, a water storage pit. Upasach, and he opened it, umasal rabim, and he gave it over to the public. So basically, he was doing a public service. He was digging it, but then handing over custody to the public. Potter is no longer responsible. He doesn't have to look after it. It's public works department to look after it. But if chafar pasach lemasach rabim, well, let's say he dug, but he didn't actually hand it over to the rabbim. He's still, owning that water pit, but everybody's accessing it. Chayiv, he's responsible to look after it. Now there was a tzaddik named Nechunya. He would dig all these types of pits for the sake of the oilei regalim of the Jewish travelers going up to the Beis Hamikdash for Yom Tov. So he'd create all these water storage areas on the road. He would dig it and give it over to the public. So he would sort of follow this formula, and this way he was absolved of any responsibility. When the Chama heard this type of practice, they said, well, Kiyem Zeh halachazu, his fellow tzaddik actually practiced this halacha. Basically, he dug it, but he handed it over to the rabbim. It's their responsibility. Asks the Gemara, halachazu, we only kept this specific halacha, nothing else? No. V'suloi, el-eim af halachazu, he kept everything, including this. He was meticulous in everything, even in this. These halachas, important halachas of public safety, he was careful to do it properly. Continues the Gemara on this topic of Nechunya Chayfer Beiris. Tana Rabbanan. Maaseh, there was a story involving his daughter. Bebitoy, Shal Nechunya Chayfer Sichen, that had an accident and fell into one of the Beiris. Shenafel Bar Gadol, she fell into this very deep water hole. And they couldn't get her out. Bo Voidiu, as Rabbi Chanina Medaisa, they quickly ran to the tzaddik, Rabbi Chanina Medaisa, what should we do? Shah Rishayna, a couple of minutes passed, Amar Lahem, he told them not to worry. She's certainly okay, Shalem, she's safe. Shnia, a little while later, Amar Lahem Shalem, once again he responded the same way, she's certainly safe. She's being looked after by Hashem. Shlishis, but after a while when it would be impossible for a person to survive underwater that long, Amar Lahem, he told them, okay, obviously somehow she was rescued, also she's certainly out of there. Amrlo, so they went and they looked, and in fact she was actually somehow out of the pit. She was miraculously saved. So they asked her, what happened? Amrlo Mihelach, who took you out of the pit? Amrlo, she told them, Zachar shel rechelim damli. I encountered this male rachel, meaning a ram, an animal, being led by this older man, which the Mepharshim says Avram Avinu leading the aisle, which took the place of Yitzchak Avinu by the Akedah. So here as well, there was some sort of exchange. Hashem took, the girl out because of the schusim of her father, and she was saved. So they went back to the tzaddik. How did you know this happened? Naviyata, you're a prophet. How did you know? He says, no, actually not. Neither am I a navi or a son of a navi. So how did I know? I figured in his humility, he says like this, I figure davar sha'oisei tzaddik mistar, boy, it cannot be so. Her father was heavily involved. He invested great effort. He was mitzvah to provide water for the passerby for Klal Yisrael. So this same thing that a tzaddik was involved in, meaning generating these water pits, it cannot be that this exact thing should cause pitfall and hazard and danger and bring tragedy to his family. His own child should fall in that, should be struck by it. It can't be. And therefore, I was confident she was certainly saved. That's what happened. But still, apparently there was some sort of, chet, some sort of deficiency within the family. And in fact, another member of his family died in a similar fashion, not directly through a water pit, but in a similar fashion. Perhaps the family was somewhat lax in this. They had this tafkid of providing water. There was some deficiency, some sort of laxness, and therefore, Afal Pikain, Meisbrei Batsama, his son died of thirst. Shenemar Usvivav Nisara Moed. Hashem is very careful, very meticulous and strict. Malamed Shakadosh Baruch Hu Medaktekim Svivav Afil Kuchut Asara. Hashem is very meticulous and careful with his, close tzaddikim. He's medaktek, even like a hair's breadth, even a drop of deficiency. Hashem takes into account and holds him responsible, and that's what happened. We have a different source for this concept. Hashem's judgment is meted on all his sviva, on the ones that are close to him especially. If a person suggests and tells people that Hashem, just forgives and forgets, that's terrible because it generates laxity in observance of mitzvahs. Yivatru chayiv, his own life should become, exposed and vulnerable. That's his oynesh. Shenemar atzur tamim pa'alai kichol drachav mishpat. Hashem's ways are just and exact. Omer b'chana v'yitem Rabbi Shmuel Rachmeini. What does the pasuk mean when it says erach apayim? Hashem has patience. You would think, v'loksiv erach af, instead of just saying erach af, Hashem has patience. And lets the Rishaim take their time till they do tshuva. Ultimately, Hashem holds them accountable, but with patience. Why does it say erach apayim, which sounds like it's a double meaning, a double reference? Erach apayim means l'tzadikim l'Rishaim. Hashem, waits and is patient with respect to his treatment of the Rishaim. So he lets them, have their time to do tshuva, and also l'tzadikim in terms of, rewarding the tzaddikim doesn't happen instantly. Hashem takes time, and he waits and waits until they're actually deserving of the biggest reward. A person should be careful not to remove stones out of his property and throw it into the street. Was a story involving this person. He was doing exactly that, throwing the stones out of his yard into the street. This pious man met him. Amalei says, what are you doing? Reika, empty head. Why are you doing this? You're removing stones from property which isn't really yours. Who says it's going to be yours in the long term? Maybe one day you're going to sell it. And where are you throwing it? To the street, which is really yours. So he sort of admonished him using this sort of twist on words. Ligleg Olav says, fellow started laughing. What do you mean? This is my territory. That street? I don't care about the street. It turns out that a little while later, this fellow had to sell his property and was walking down the street. He sold his field. He's walking down that exact street. And he stumbled on those stones which he placed in the street. Now he realized that tzaddik was really on target when he told me, why are you doing this? Removing the stones from someplace which is not yours and throwing it into the street which is going to be yours. Continues the Mishnah. A person digs a pit in the street and falls a bull or a donkey and gets hurt or dies, he is responsible. And it doesn't really matter what size and what shape that pit was, as long as it's deep enough to cause damage. Whether he dug a round pit, siach, long and narrow pit, or ma'ara, a square pit which was roofed, which had a little opening, charitzin, a square pit without a roof, uni'itzin, or a V-shaped pit, wide on top, narrow on bottom. In all these cases, he's chayiv. So why does the Torah specify bur, which is a specific, contour? The answer is, it doesn't have to be dafka bur. It's just a matter of comparing it to the depth of a bur. Ma bur, just like a bur, the classic bur, the Chacham at Kabbalah means sheyesh bo kedei lahamas asara tefachim. It has 10 tefach depth, which has the ability to kill. That's the bur that Torah speaks about. Of course, likewise, any sort of pit or hole with that ability, sheyesh bo kedei lahamas, which can kill asara tefachim because it's 10 tefach deep, he's chayiv. Let's say it's less than 10 tefach deep. An animal falls in and dies, I'm potter. But if he's hurt, of course he's chayiv. Amar Rav, what type of damage is the bur inflicting? How does it do it? Amar Rav, bur shechiva of Torah, when the Torah holds a person liable for digging a pit, it's because it's because the bur has hevel, mist, moisture, humidity, lacking oxygen, which makes the person or the animal that fell into the bur, short of oxygen, and makes him vulnerable and susceptible to harm. We're not speaking about the actual impact of that fall, because Rav holds chavata, you can't hold him responsible for the bang. Karka ilmu, he banged into the floor, which doesn't belong to me. So karka ilam, the maskele, it's the floor, the karka ilam, which caused that type of damage. Rather, the reason for liability is the hevel. Interesting, right? Surprisingly enough, it's the hevel, according to Rav, which triggered the whole hezek ultimately through the bang, but it was the hevel that actually made him vulnerable and susceptible, weakened his immune system or his ability to resist that impact. That's Rav's opinion. Ushmol Amar, Shmuel disagrees. There are two elements, two possible vehicles of harm. Lahevloi, whether it's the hevel, the koshkan chavata, and of course he's responsible for the actual bang, for the impact. Well, says Shmuel, perhaps it's only the chavata and never the hevel. Well, that's untrue, because Torah hi'ida ala bur, the Torah speaks about being responsible for a bur, even if it's cushioned with bundles and pieces of wool, basically. Even if it's fully cushioned, the Torah doesn't differentiate. There's no chavata, there's no bang, still is chayav. Apparently, even damage caused by hevel on itself is also a reason for chiv. So bottom line is, according to Rav, the chiv is only because of the hevel, and according to Shmuel, whether it's the hevel or the chavata, either way you're chayiv. Might be now any case which would only be chayiv according to one sheet and not the other. You can have a difference like this. Da'avad goyo b'shis Rav. Let's say he made a little mound in the street. He created like a high point. Animal climbs up and plops down onto the street. So there was no sort of below terrain. There was no underground enclosure which contains hevel. All we have is the chavata. So that's the nafkamina. L'Rav, according to Rav, you're not chayiv. Agoiv aloi mechayiv. L'Shmuel agoiv nami mechayiv, because there's a chavata, there's a bang. My time of the Rav. How does Rav know that it's all about the hevel and not the chavata? Damakor, the pasuk says v'nafal. The animal fell v'nafal. Ad sheyipol derech nafila. V'nafal indicates that he fell and head first, face to the ground, and that's the type of case that is chayiv for, because he sort of choked himself down on bottom through the hevel. Shmuel v'nafal koldu mashma. Shmuel learns v'nafal means any type of fall, even off a mound onto the street below. Okay, so now let's go back to the Mishnah. If a person is liable for any type of pit, why does the Torah specify bur? My bur, the point is to learn the depth from the bur. Of course, any type of pit or ditch, which has 10 tefach depth, you're chayiv. So why does the Mishnah use the lashon af koil? What is that coming to include? Af koil, even this that as well. According to Shmuel, we can very well understand the extra expression, extra phrase. Af koil is coming to include lasuya gaiva, falling off a high point in the street because of the chavata. Elul Rav, according to Rav, af koil lasuya mai. What's that coming to add? Well, it's coming to add all types of configuration. Lasuya charitzin and itzin. So as we explained, charitzin are the square-shaped uncovered pits, and the itzin are the V-shaped pits. That's what it's coming to include. Well, charitzin and the itzin, what do you mean? The Mishnah already began by listing all types of configurations. Why the repetition? Tani, first we listed Vadim Afarish, then we explain how we know it. We know it from the fact that Torah gave us the word bur, and bur is just an expression of all types of pits and obstacles. Says the Gemara, why does the Mishnah actually have to list all these things? Bur and siach and mara, they're pretty much, all the same idea. Each one contains a chiddush. The Tana bur, if we only mention bur, I would say bur asaru this behavla. A bur tentavachti contains the hevel element. Mishum the kotna kricha, because it's narrow and round. Aval siach, but a longer, rectangular shaped ditch, the urich, which is long. Ema, perhaps there's more circulation, more ventilation. Basora less behevla, just because it's tentavachti, but doesn't contain enough hevel to cause damage. Vitano siach. Now, the Mishnah mentioned siach as well. I would say havamina siach asora this behevla. Maybe there's hevel and siach. Mishum the kotna, because actually it's narrow. Aval ma'ara the maraba, but ma'ara, which is more of a square shaped, a broader, wider shaped pit. Ema ba'asora less behevla. Maybe just tentavachti. It's not enough to have the hevel element to create damage. V'itani me'ora, had the Mishnah added me'ora as well. I would say me'ora ba'asora this behavla. Over there, there's hevel when tentavachti mishum the metal, because actually it's covered and contained, so it has the hevel point. Aval charitzin lo metali, but a square shaped pit without a lid, which is not covered, lo metali. Ema, I would say perhaps a shallow charit, no ba'asora less behavla, doesn't have a serious element of hevel. Vitana charitzin. Then, if the Mishnah would add charitzin to the list, I would say, well, charitzin asura this be'avla, over there, this hevel. Mishum the lesbu ravicham le'el, because it isn't wider at the top, tfeimet atoy, more than the bottom. It's sort of equally contoured. Aval ne'itzim, but this V-shaped pit, the ravicham le'el, tfeimet atoy, which is wider on top than the bottom. Ema, perhaps over there, I would say ba'asora, but just tentavachtiv, less buhavla. There's no real hevel, there's proper circulation. Kamashmal, that's why the Mishnah troubled itself to go through an entire list. Whether it's this or that, it all has the hevel element and you're chayiv. Tanana, we have the Mishnah which says, well, if it's less than 10 tefach, and what happens if an animal so if an animal falls in and dies, pater, you don't have to pay. But if the animal was harmed due to its fall, you have to pay. Now why? The animal falls and dies, you don't have to pay. Why? My time. So Gemara is figuring at this point that, if there is a difference between dying and being harmed, apparently we're not speaking about hevel, because either there is hevel or there's no hevel, right? So the Gemara figures, skip the hevel point. The reason why I'm potter for misa, if it's less than 10, my time because there isn't enough of a drop. It's less than 10 tefach. It's very shallow. It's not really. It doesn't make sense that it would kill. It's not your. It's not sufficient to kill. That drop isn't drastic enough to kill. That's why I'm potter from misa. So this is a raya that we don't reckon with hevel, right? So Rashi learns the kashas like this, that even though there is hevel, right, I'm still potter if it killed somebody, because it's not enough of a bang, it's not enough of an impact. So apparently we're not reckoning with hevel. That's a kasha both on Rav and Shmuel, who say that hevel on its own is sufficient reason for liability. It says, no, loy mishum less pay havlo. Hevel, yes, would be a reason for liability, but here there's no hevel. Says the more, so why am I chayiv for hurting the shor? So why if the shor got hurt, I have to pay? Less pay havla. There's no hevel element to cause damage either. Amri, the answer is like this. There is a certain degree of hevel. Not serious enough to kill, but enough to damage. Yes, havla lamis, Amri. So the answer given was like this. Ein havla lamisa. There isn't enough hevel to kill, to choke him. V'yesh havla l'nezakim, but there is enough to make him vulnerable to nezek. So then I'm chayiv, but misa I'm pot. Okay, continue tomorrow, Bez Hashem. Just recap today's daf. A person digs a pit, is he chayiv? Well, it depends where, depends when. So according to Rabbah, Shisa Rabbah is chayiv. According to all shitas, Shisa Yachar is machlekes. According to Rabbi Yosef, Shisa Yachar all agree chayiv. Again, you're mafki rishus, and you made it accessible to the public, you're chayiv. But Shisa Rabbah is a machlekes. All agree if it's in a private property which he didn't make hefker, he's potter. All agree by the Luushin, he's potter. If he dug a pit and he gave it over to the rabbin under their care, he's certainly potter as well. We have the story with Nechunya Chafer Sichen, which we had a story with his daughter, a story with his son. We had the story with the Chassid Echad, who gave some advice to this fellow who was throwing the stones into the street. The Chiv of the Bor, according to Rav, is because of the Hevel, strictly because of Hevel. And according to Shmuel, whether it's Hevel or Chavata is Chayiv, Afkimina would be creating a mound, a high point in the street, which has the Chavata element and not the Hevel element. According to Shmuel, you're Chayiv. According to Rabbi Potter, Bez Hashem will continue tomorrow. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha Rabbah.